We're operating on what feels urgent right now and today instead of thinking really clearly and strategically. So, this lack of crystal clear clarity, it's killing three things. First, it's killing your energy and your joy, unfortunately, because when you don't know what success looks like, it's really hard to feel successful. You can't necessarily feel that sense of progress that fuels us as human beings. Second, it could be killing your productivity, right? You're spending time on everything, especially the things that are urgent right now, which means you might not be spending enough time on really what matters most. And third, this lack of clarity, it's killing your ability to really lead your team effectively. Because if you don't have clarity, you can't provide it for others.
Welcome. You're listening to This Leader, the podcast. If you lead people and are seeking the transformational, high-impact secrets that will lead to greater joy and fulfillment in your work, will optimize your team performance, and will help you create a happy, highly productive workplace, then you are this leader and you're in the right place. I'm your host, Claire Laughlin, and each week my guests and I will explore the mindsets, techniques, and actionable strategies that will help you build the career, team, and organization of your dreams. Because I believe no one should have to suffer in a dysfunctional workplace. Let's get started.
Hello, friend. Listen, I want to paint a picture for you. Okay, imagine this. It's 4:47 on a Thursday. You've been in meetings since about 8:30 this morning, back to back. Some were very important, strategic planning, difficult conversation with a team member, cross-functional project you had to kick off. Those ones mattered, right? That felt real good. But others, you're not really even sure why you were there. Status updates you could have read in an email, or conversations that went in circles, decisions that weren't made, meetings about meetings, meetings after the meetings that were about meetings, things like that. Between all this, you've been checking your emails, responding to emails, putting out fires, answering questions, helping people. And look, that's important work too. But here's the thing, it's reactive work, right? Now, everyone's logging off for the day. It's like 4:47, people are starting to close out, and you finally have time to sit down and do your real work. Those strategic projects, planning, that upstream thinking that would actually move the needle. But you know what? You're exhausted. Your brain is fried. You've got maybe 60, maybe 90 minutes of good thinking left in you, if that. And honestly, right now, you're not even 100% sure what your real work should be at the moment anyway, right? You're thinking, okay, I know I got to get something important done, but what is it? So maybe you just revert to answering more emails or organizing your task list for tomorrow, prep for those meetings. You do the things that feel productive, but not necessarily meaningful. You log off at, 6:30 p.m. feeling tired, but without that sense of accomplishment that you've been chasing. Any of this sound familiar? Listen, this isn't just about one bad Thursday, okay? If it's just a day here, a day there, you're good. But if this is a pattern, if this is your week, this is your month, well, you're working hard. You care a lot, but you're chasing success and you're never quite catching it. Here's the worst part, the part that probably keeps you up at night. You're not just dealing with this yourself, okay? You're passing it down to your team, right? And you see it. You can see them. They're running as fast as they can. But those breakthrough projects, the ones that really matter, that you're really hoping get done, those are definitely not moving as fast as they could or as you'd like them to. Listen, if you don't have clarity about what matters most, and if you don't have the structure in your day to stay focused on those top priority activities, can you blame them? How can you possibly provide that clarity for others? So your team, they're out there. They're working just as hard. They're feeling just as scattered and, unfortunately, just as unfulfilled. So here's what I know after more than 2 decades of working with leaders and teams. This dynamic, this is not because you're not working hard enough. You are working hard. And this isn't because you're not smart enough or strategic enough or organized enough. None of those things are necessarily true. This is a clarity problem, okay? And we need a step-by-step process to address this specifically, starting with an understanding about how you're really measured. Okay, so let me tell you what happens when I work with a group of leaders. And I mean really accomplished, dedicated, smart leaders who are doing important work. One of the questions I might ask is this: Hey, so tell me, okay, how are you measured at work? What does success look like in your role? Or what's most important for your team and your organization? What's your most important outcome right now, this quarter? And you know what happens more often than not? Blank stares, maybe some nervous laughter, right? Eventually, someone comes up with something. They might say, well, getting my performance reviews turned in. Yeah, I'm late on those. That's an urgent matter. Or I'm measured by how responsive I am to my colleagues, or I'm expected to hit our department goals. Those are reasonable answers. That's a start, right? But when I dig deeper and I say, okay, tell me, see if you can name this. What are the three most important outcomes you need to drive this quarter? That's when things get fuzzy because most leaders, even really good ones, don't have regular, explicit conversations about top priority outcomes and prioritization. Okay. You might not be having them with your manager. You might not be having them with your team. That means we're all operating on assumptions, right? We're operating on what we think matters. We're operating on what feels urgent right now and today instead of thinking really clearly and strategically. So this lack of crystal clear clarity, it's killing three things. First, it's killing your energy and your joy, unfortunately. Because when you don't know what success looks like, it's really hard to feel successful. You can't necessarily feel that awesome traction, right? That sense of progress that fuels us as human beings. Second, it could be killing your productivity, right? You're spending time. Trust me, you're putting in the hours. You're spending time on everything, especially the things that are urgent right now, which means you might not be spending enough time on really what matters most. Okay. Urgent is important. Don't get me wrong. But the things that are important but not urgent, those are usually the things that move the needle. And third, right, this lack of clarity, it's killing your ability to really lead your team effectively. Because if you don't have clarity, you can't provide it for others. So I want to introduce you to three types of clarity today that I think every leader needs. And we're going to focus on just one today, but I want to share this full picture with you. So first, number one is strategic clarity. And that's about knowing what work will actually move the needle. Like, what should we be working on right now and why? Okay. Number two is responsibility clarity. And that's about knowing who owns what. Really clear ownership, really clear boundaries, really clear decision-making authority. Number three is progress clarity. That's about knowing how we're tracking. What does meaningful progress look like, right? What are we expected to achieve now? How do we measure that? Those three kinds of clarity are really important. They're just a little bit different, but they're all part of this really important picture about driving toward clarity. So today, we're going to dive deep into that first one, that strategic clarity, because without this, the other two are much harder to come by. Okay. So if you don't know what you should be focused on, well, then who's responsible or how you're tracking it doesn't matter as much, right? So today, strategic clarity. Okay, let me take you back to a time when I was younger. I was working at a community college and I had a really awesome job, honestly. If you've been listening for a while, you've probably heard me talk about this, but my role was to build the contract education division for the college. And it was the best. I got to do consulting work with organizations. I got to design programs. I got to be strategic and creative. I loved it. I loved all the parts, the consulting, the strategy. I loved building the business. These are my happy places. But at the time, I had no idea how I was being measured. Okay. Was my success tied to my division's profitability, like how much margin I could build into the programs I was offering? I don't know. Was I measured by sustainability? For example, was I building something that could continue without me? Something that could scale? I didn't know. Was I measured by the number of clients I was serving? Or maybe it was the depth of service I was able to provide per client. Or was it the number of repeat clients I had? Because those things would have taken me all in completely different directions. Literally, how I spend my time would have been different under each of those different assumptions. I don't know. Was it the number of repeat customers? Was it satisfaction ratings? Was it the duration of client relationships? Every single one of these different kinds of metrics would have been meaningful. They all would have been good, right? And they would have led me to spend my time to wake up in the morning and do different activities, prioritize different things, make different choices about where to invest my energy. But I didn't know which one mattered most. So I tried to do it all. Okay. I was working on everything. I was building new programs. I was serving more clients. I was going deeper with my existing clients. I was trying to create sustainable systems. I was trying to maximize margins. I was making sure everyone was satisfied. I was building a team. I was doing all the things. And I was making moderate progress on all of those fronts, but I was slowly burning out. And here's the kicker. I was burning out doing work that I loved. That's how insidious this is, really. I started to hate my job. I mean, I started to dread going to work, not because the work was bad. I mean, again, I loved every part of it. I loved my team, but I felt like I was running on a hamster wheel. I was working incredibly hard, but I couldn't sustain it. And I never really felt like I was making real progress because I didn't know where I was going. The work was never enough. It was never enough. And again, I'm going to just admit here, part of this is just the way my brain works. So I'm going to give you that. But eventually, I asked my manager for some clarity. I was like, look, can we talk about this? What am I measured by? But guess what? He didn't have that clarity to give me. He was pleased with what I was doing. He was fine with it. He didn't have any metrics in mind. I suppose most people would have left it right there. But at the time, I was exhausted and I didn't want to leave this job that I loved. And I knew that without more clarity, I would keep repeating the same cycle. Something had to change. So I did the hard work of defining my own metrics. I sat down and I thought, okay, what should I be measured by? What would actually serve my employer the best? What would allow me to do my best work? What would truly serve my clients, right? I looked through all those lenses and I went down each of those rabbit holes and I defined specific outcomes, quarterly outcomes. And I supported those with actual numbers based on my historical performance, right? And then I defined the strategic activities that would best support and accelerate each outcome. So that work took a while, but I'm going to give you a quick example. For example, if one of my outcomes was, number of clients I served, then I would say, okay, this is how many clients I've served, every year for the last, 4 years or whatever. This is how the trajectory has grown. And if my metric is to serve more clients, then this list of things are the activities I would be doing. I'd be focusing on marketing, on awareness building, on giving talks, on, networking, things like that, because I want to get in front of more people. Okay. So that's just an example. But each of those things, like that's a very different set of activities than wanting to go deeper with each client, which would entail spending more time with each of my individual clients and designing deeper programs that I could then scale, things like that, right? Okay, so that work took a while, but it gave me a kind of clarity that was golden. It was just like lifting a veil, okay? Because then I could finally see how and why I was getting so burned out. I was like, oh, I'm trying to do all these things, and they're all different kinds of activities. So at that point, I came up with my own proposal. I crafted a proposal based on what I thought would be really most sustainable in the long run and on what outcomes felt reasonable to me, right? Instead of saying, oh, I'm always going to be growing, I was like, look, I can serve this many clients. I can hit these kinds of numbers. Does that make sense? I took this to my manager and I said, here's what I think I should be working on, and here's how I think I should be measured. Here's the outcomes I believe I can achieve quarter by quarter. And here's what I think success looks like for this role. Does this align with what you need? And you know what he said? Yes, that makes sense. And just like that, I had clarity. A huge weight was lifted from my shoulders. So now I could truly focus. And I knew that I could do the work of letting go of the things that were now not aligned with the stuff that I had written down, I had put on paper, I had had the conversation, I had gotten the alignment, and now I knew where I should focus. Looking back, I now imagine how much more I could have accomplished in the years I was in that role if I had just had more clarity earlier on, right? I mean, at the end of the day, remember, there's only so many hours. There's only so many hours that you have. And if you spend those hours doing one thing, anything really, you are by definition not doing something else, right? So you feel guilty about what didn't get done, and you feel like you're running to catch up with an invisible and ever changing, finish line. So, all important. Listen, I'm going to give you a little sidebar here. I've worked for a number of sales teams, and my son is in sales now. And you know what's amazing? People in sales always seem to know their metrics. They always seem to know what they should be doing and how they're going to be measured. It provides this kind of focus that is really compelling. And I mean, I know we all do different kinds of roles, but I think we can, I'm thinking we should pull a page from that sales playbook and find ways to bring that clarity to our roles. So here's what I need you to do. And I'm going to be very specific about this because this is one of those things that sounds simple, but it requires real thought and some time and some courage. You need to have that clarity conversation. Actually, you need to have two types of clarity conversations. One with your manager about how you're measured or what the expectations are for your team and what outcomes are most important right now. And then similar conversations with each of your team members about how they're measured. Okay, but let's start with you. First, schedule a meeting with your manager. Don't try to do this in the hallway and don't tack it on to the end of one of your regular one-to-ones. This deserves dedicated time. So here's what you can say. Hey, I want to make sure I'm focusing my energy on what matters most. Can we talk about what my most important outcomes are right now, like how my performance is truly measured and what success looks like in my role in the next 90 days? Most managers, I'm guessing, are going to say yes to this. And honestly, I'm thinking most of them will be quite impressed that you're asking. And then in that meeting, I want you to work through some questions together. So question number one is this. What are the 3 most important outcomes I should be driving right now? Did you hear that? I said 3, not 10, not everything, 3. So this is where the magic happens because you are forced to prioritize. And listen, this can be uncomfortable. I've been in conversations where I hear the manager say or the leader say, well, everything's important. All 67 of these things are important. That's when I encourage you to gently push back and say, look, I understand, but if I could only get 3 really important things done this quarter, 3 outcomes that would make a really big difference, which 3 would move the needle most? Force that prioritization. Because, if you're trying to do everything, it's the same as prioritizing nothing. Now, question number 2. So first, have that question, try to drill it down to what's most important right now. And of course, you want to talk about the why. Why? What will this get us toward? Again, this is a curious conversation. So question 2, once you get those priorities, ask, okay, how will we know I've been successful? What does good look like? What does done look like, right? Get specific. What is that vision? What is the milestone? What's the marker? Is it a number? Is it revenue generated? Is it customers served? Is it projects completed or tickets resolved? Is it a behavior or an outcome or stakeholder satisfaction, team development? Is it a functioning system that's finally been tested and we've flipped the switch and it's now live? Is it a specific, report? Is it a deliverable? Is it a completed strategy document? Is it a team trained in a certain skill set or a problem that you finally resolved? I want you to get concrete here. If your manager says, how will you know if you've been successful? Well, you'll be doing good work or meeting expectations or being responsive, right? Those things aren't specific enough. There's no finish line to those. You want the finish line. You want to know, here's the milestone, here's the deliverable, here's the thing that's complete. Okay? And look, you're asking because you want to perform, not because you're being a bugger. So keep that in mind. Question 3, what are the leading indicators I should be tracking? This is my favorite question. This is what gives you that sense of progress we talked about earlier and make sure that you're on the right track. Leading indicators, those tell you if you're on the right track before the final outcome is achieved. They're the activities or the milestones that will predict your success. For example, if your outcome is something like this, your boss says, you know what I need? I need you to increase our customer retention rate this quarter. Okay. Then your leading indicator might be something like this. Okay. It's the number of proactive check in calls that I'm completing with my customers each week. Or, or it's how my customers are self reporting their satisfaction in those check in calls, for example. Okay. So you're designing a way to test whether you're going to hit your outcome before the deadline so that you know if you're on the right track. Okay. I'll give you another one. If your outcome is something like, hey, I want you to develop your team's capabilities or your team capacity, then a leading indicator might be something like this. It could be the number of team members that are confidently running meetings independently. Or is it the idea that I've had a personal development plan conversation with each of my team members, something like that. If your outcome is something like, we're going to launch a new system by Q3, a leading indicator could be, I've gathered the requirements from my customers, or I've done stakeholder interviews, or we've tested the prototype and identified improvements, something like that. Okay. These leading indicators are what you track on a more frequent basis, maybe weekly. They're what give you that feeling of progress and of moving forward and of accomplishment, right? So I know what some of you are thinking. You might be saying to yourself, Claire, my manager is not going to have good answers to these questions. They're going to be just as fuzzy as I am. And you might be right. That's not really uncommon, but that's okay. You can do what I did. Come prepared with your own proposal or take that opportunity and say, you know what? How about I take a stab at this? Let me see what I can come up with based on, our department goals. And then again, prepare your own proposal. Come back with that. And before that meeting, right, that you have with your proposal, do some thinking. Like really think, what do you think your 3 priorities should be? Again, check out your department goals, your division goals, your organizational goals. That's a great way to get started. Ask yourself, how do you think success should be measured? What numbers matter? What do you think the leading indicators are? Like, what are the steps along the path that can serve as your guide? Write these things down and make your proposal specific. Then try to say to your manager, okay, here's what I'm thinking. Does this align with what you need? What would you add or change? Something like that. I'm going to say most managers are going to be relieved that you've done this work. Sure, they might make some tweaks, add some context or something, but you'll walk out with a lot more clarity. Okay, now let's talk about your team. Once you have clarity for yourself, it's time to provide it for your team members. I want you to have the same conversation with each of your direct reports. What are the 3 outcomes they should be focused on right now? How will you know they've been successful? And what are the leading indicators they should track to feel that sense of progress? And here's what's so beautiful about this. When everyone on your team knows exactly what success looks like, everything gets easier because you're all rowing in the same direction. Your meetings get shorter because people aren't wondering what to focus on. Your emails get fewer because people can make decisions independently. Your results get better because energy is focused, not scattered. And when someone comes to you and asks, okay, should I work on X or Y? They actually already have a decision filter. They can ask themselves, which of these activities is the best contributor to my top priority? That's empowerment, my friend. That is what it means to build an autonomous, high-performing team. Now, I want to acknowledge something here. This work is hard, okay? This work is hard. It takes time. Having these conversations takes courage. It takes pre-work. And we've already sort of determined that you might be running on empty here. I get it. And defining metrics when it hasn't been done before or it's really unclear, it takes real thought. Also, we'll just say you might face some resistance. Your manager might not be used to this kind of conversation. And it's possible that they could even get a little defensive and, sort of be wondering in their minds, wait, are you questioning my leadership? That is not what you're doing. You're asking for clarity so that you can do your best work. And I want you to approach the situation that way, frame it that way for them. Tell them that it's really important that you're wanting to drive toward greater degrees of clarity so that you can deliver. Your team members also might be surprised when you bring up this level of specificity, right? They might be used to being given more vague direction and having just less clear goals, like being able to kick the can down the road. And that's okay. But help them see this transition or this request as a gift, as a new way of working that you're going to ease into and get used to, because it can make everything easier. It's not intended to be added pressure. Because here's what I've seen happen time and again with leaders that create clarity and who provide clarity: energy comes back. A sense of excitement about work returns. There's that feeling of progress, right? You can see yourself moving towards something meaningful. Teams start making better decisions independently. Results improve, often dramatically. And now you're getting much more accomplished in less time because you're focused. And most importantly, teams that do this work stop feeling like they're chasing success and never catching it, because now they know what success looks like and they can see when they're getting closer. They can feel that sense of progress. Okay, so here's what I want you to do. I'm going to give you a quick start option and a deeper dive option. Quick start. Use AI to get some clarity. Now we've got AI. I love it. If you want to get started right now, like today, in the next 30 minutes, I've got sort of a drafted AI prompt for you. So open up ChatGPT or Claude or whatever you use, and I want you to copy this prompt and dig into this a little bit. Don't worry about writing this all down right now, by the way. I'll put the full prompt in the show notes, okay? So here's what you're going to paste in. I'm a blank. Put your job title in there. At a blank size or type of organization, okay? I'm a what? Your job title in this kind of an organization. And paste your job description in there. Say, here's my job description. Put it in there if you've got it, right? And here are my organization's strategic objectives or goals right now, okay? If you've got those, put those in there too. Then just ask, say, based on this information, help me identify the 3 most important outcomes I should be driving over the next 90 days. For each outcome, I want you to suggest 2 to 3 specific metrics that would indicate success. And for each outcome, suggest 2 to 3 leading indicators that I could track weekly to know I'm on track. Be specific and practical. Okay? So if you use that prompt, it's going to at least give you a kickstart. I've used this prompt before with clients, and I'm telling you, the results are shockingly helpful. It's not going to be perfect. AI doesn't know all the nuances of your specific situation, but you can, of course, then, dialogue a little bit, and it's going to give you a solid starting point that then you can refine with your manager. Try it, see what comes up. You might be surprised at how clarifying it is to just see your role through this lens. I wish I had had that when I was trying to do this work. So now, the deeper dive option, I want you to dig into the full framework here. If you want that full framework, and I really hope you do, I want you to download a guide that I've created. It's called the Creating Clarity Guide, okay? And you can get it at clairelaughlin.com/creating clarity, all one word, clairelaughlin.com/creating clarity. This guide gives you everything. It gives you the complete framework for the strategic, responsibility, and progress clarity that I mentioned earlier. Gives you some conversation templates for talking with your manager, week by week implementation plans so you know exactly what to do and when. The questions you could ask your team members, some progress tracking tools. It's really a roadmap for transforming scattered effort into focused progress. And I need to tell you something. This guide is actually part of the foundation of something bigger I've been working on. I've spent the last several months recreating a program called Evolve. It's my new leadership development program. And the very first module is entirely focused on clarity, not just this kind of clarity, but also self-clarity, okay? Why? Because after 30 years of consulting and working with hundreds of leaders and teams, I've realized that clarity is often what's missing, and it provides this fabulous foundation for everything else, okay? Trust, right? It's hard to build long-lasting, really enduring trust without clarity about roles and expectations. Those two things are very intertwined. You can't drive real results without clarity because you won't know what success looks like. You can't develop a high-performing team without clarity because they won't know where they're going. Evolve takes the concepts in this guide and more and brings them to life in short, focused, interactive exercises and conversation guides, worksheets, checklists, real time support, and a network of other leaders working on the same challenges you are. So we'll be launching very soon in the next couple months. And if you want to be notified when it's available, just download the Creating Clarity Guide and you'll automatically be on the list. Okay, but don't wait. Don't wait for Evolve to get started. Use that AI prompt today, like as soon as this episode ends. Download the guide, schedule that conversation with your manager, because here's the truth. Clarity doesn't just happen. It's not something that's going to magically appear one day. It's something you create through intentional conversations, through asking the right questions, doing the hard work of defining what success actually looks like. And once you have it, everything changes. So here's what I want you to remember. That feeling of being busy but not productive, that's not because you're not working hard enough, my friend. It's because you're missing clarity. That exhaustion at the end of the day, that comes from scattering your effort and your energy or from not making meaningful progress toward clear goals, right? That's what that's from. And that sense that you're passing this confusion down to your team, I'm sorry to say you probably are, but you can also be the one that breaks the cycle. So start with getting clear on how you're measured and then help your team get clear on how they're measured. That's how hard work becomes meaningful work. It's how busy becomes productive, and it's how exhaustion becomes accomplishment. So go download that guide, try the AI prompt, schedule the conversation. Your future, clearer, more focused self will thank you. That's it for today, my friend. And if this episode helped you, please share it with another leader who's feeling that same busy but not productive exhaustion. We need to turn this around and create new habits, and we can do it together. Don't forget, ClaireLaughlin.com/creatingclarity. Thanks for listening, and until next week, go lead the way.
I hope you've enjoyed this episode. To learn more about my services and for lots of free resources and additional tools to enrich your journey, visit my website and subscribe to my newsletter at ClaireLaughlin.com. If you have a question about leadership, teams, or organizational culture you'd like me to address on the podcast, please reach out to me at support@ClaireLaughlin.com and connect with me on social channels @ClaireLaughlin Consulting. Until next time, lead the way.